Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&As. So let's go ahead and knock this out. Alright, first question. Hey Jason, I work in the gym of a country club and I was chatting to a member about the body pump class that he goes to regularly. I mentioned that I tried it in the past and that the pulsing movement in it made me feel really uncomfortable for the next few days. I said to him that you should always do a full range of motion for protection of the joints. I'm curious to know what your thoughts were on this and if body pump is a class that people should really avoid doing. Thanks. That's a fantastic question, and this is an interesting one because I did a video on this last year, back when I had been training Brittany for a while, and she had been working on her deadlift, her bench press, everything else. She had gotten to where she was deadlifting 185 for reps, and she went to support one of her friends who was trying to lose weight and get in shape and was taking these body pump classes, and she went to the class and in between her normal workouts, and she came back to me and she was almost crippled from the class. She said it was all stupid, all these silly partial exercises. She described to me things they were doing. It messed her training up and her recovery up so much because of just the silly fluff nonsense and all the extra partials, high volumes of partial reps with lightweight and everything, that she had certain muscles that were so sore that she had to actually miss her deadlifts the coming week. Like, she wasn't actually able to deadlift just due to the negative effects this class had on her. Now, people are like, well, it helps people get in shape. Other than her friend who was taking the classes and still took them for 6 months was still like 50 pounds overweight. She didn't get in shape from doing the classes. Didn't help at all. Now, would I say it's better than nothing? Of course it is. And some people need those group settings, but it absolutely doesn't seem to be even remotely as effective as any form of traditional resistance training. Yeah, they do a lot of silly stuff that I think is counterproductive, not good for your joints, not good for your mobility, everything else. And just from the little bit I've seen of it, I happen to agree with you. I just wouldn't get behind these classes, and I wouldn't recommend them. I don't think they're a good match for people with any sort of serious fitness goals, because like you're saying, as far as your joints and your mobility and everything else, doing the large volumes of work with partial reps, which is what they seem to be doing, this isn't really a good idea. No, I can't support that. All right, next question. Hey Jason, thanks for the consistent great content. I wanted to ask you about when you recommend someone consider cutting if they are making great progress. I've been making great muscle gains and strength on all 3 lifts with no signs of slowing down, and naturally have added some body fat. At what point should I stop and try to burn some fat? I'm addicted to the strength gains but don't want to go overboard. Thanks. You know what? This is going to be a very, very, very individual question, because like with anything else, you've got to assess for yourself how much body fat are you comfortable carrying as far as your self-esteem goes. How much body fat are you comfortable carrying from a health perspective? In other words, are you willing to chase strength gains to the point to where you don't mind being a bit overweight, to the point to where it might have a slight negative effect on blood pressure and stuff? Is the strength gains worth that sort of thing to you? That's a very individual question, and I'm really big on strength, obviously. But I do think that each person really needs to balance out their bulking versus when they say, okay, I've gained enough body weight, I'm starting to get a little plumper than I'm comfortable with, I'm starting to get a little more plump, a little more heavy than I think is good for my health. And that's something that we all have to sit back and we need to assess for ourselves on an individual level. It's like you said, you're really addicted to the strength gains, and I can absolutely appreciate and understand that. I mean, I've competed in powerlifting up to the international level, so I can respect that fact. I can appreciate that. But we do have to weigh that out against other goals. We have to weigh that out against our health. And at a certain point, you've got to step back and figure out for yourself, where's your body weight at? Where's your body fat at? Is it reaching a threshold to where it starts to become a health concern? Okay. And if you're reaching that threshold to where you're worried about your health, maybe your blood pressure's going up. Maybe your lipid profile's not looking pretty anymore. It might be time to start trimming down the body fat. And also, that's the time, like I always tell strength athletes, their cardio has its place. Even list cardio, which I'm promoting more and more of these days, has its place for the strength athlete. And part of that is the nutrient partitioning, the fact that it can help keep you leaner, and the fact that it can help reduce blood pressure, improve fasting glucose. It can improve a lot of these health markers that we do start to become concerned about as we continue to gain body weight, even if it's for strength purposes. It can help offset some of those negatives. And so, yeah, list cardio absolutely has its place. And what I would suggest to you, if you're starting to be concerned about this, now might be the best time for you to start incorporating list cardio, because in the long term, like I said before, you may lose some strength initially when you start doing large volumes of cardio, but down the road, even Greg Nuckols, again, one of the more innovative, newer, younger thinkers in the strength training field, is even pointing that out, that in the long term, doing relatively large amounts of list cardio when done for 6 months or longer actually seems to improve strength in the long term, even if it causes an initial loss. Then you've got to factor in that cardio combined with good diet can start to lean you out as well. And that might be something for you to consider at this point. Just looking at it, saying, hey, I'm starting to get worried, maybe I'm getting a little heavy, maybe I'm getting a little too fat, but I want to get stronger, like I really want to gain strength. Okay, well, at that point, incorporating more cardio might be your solution. You may lose a little strength at first, but a year from now, you're going to be stronger for it. You'll probably be leaner for it. You'll be healthier for it. That might be what I would recommend when you start having those sort of questions. Hey, is this a problem? Well, that's a good time to have a serious think about doing extra cardio and starting to program it into your training. All right, next question. Hi, Jason. You've recently been talking about how you're approaching your cut, lots of cardio and high carbs, low fat. As a novice, 22% body fat or more, wanting to benefit from the recomposition effect with a higher priority of lowering body fat than adding weight to the bar, can I follow your approach? Or shall I follow your advice from older videos, which is to be in a big carb depleted deficit a few days and refeed it back? Also note that I want to improve my work capacity, cardio conditioning, and the easiest to follow method. I don't like counting cals, but will if I have to. Thanks. All right, brother, that's a great question. No, the method that I use right now, for someone in your situation who's still in the novice phase, you still have noob gains to make, but you want to recomposition. You want to improve your conditioning. I think doing what I'm doing would be fantastic for you. I think that you'll find that if you do this correctly, because you still have some noob gains in the tank, if you start gradually increasing your cardio so that you can start leaning out and losing body fat and the scale go down a bit, that over time, I think the nutrient partitioning effect, I think that as a novice lifter, that 6 months from now, if you use this sort of approach and you get up to where you're doing 2 or more hours of cardio every day, while continuing to try to slowly focus on progressive overload, I think that you're going to find that you're going to be able to get stronger, gain muscle, lose fat, and improve your endurance. So yeah, absolutely. The method that I'm using right now of doing very large volumes of list cardio and then loading carbs to compensate for most of the calories burned there, not all of them, but most of them, so that you have a small caloric deficit, I think it'll work very, very well for your recomposition goals. And again, like I said, it's worked well for me. I've gained a little bit of strength on some of my lifts, not much, but I've been able to hold on to my strength. I'm an advanced lifter. I'm 40 years old. You take that same approach to someone who still has some noob gains left in the tank, I think you're going to find that you're going to get stronger, leaner, and have better endurance and better work capacity for it in the long term. So yeah, absolutely, I could get behind that. Give it a try. All right, next question and last question of the week. Hey Jason, I'm a big fan of your channel and want to say many thanks for all the great informative content, and you're most welcome. My question is squat shoes when squatting then deadlifting. I follow your program, so I do my squat sets then go straight to my deadlifts. My concern is deadlifting with squat shoes. Is it really that bad, or should I just take them off or bring an extra pair? Or should I not wear the squat shoes altogether? You know what? It's really going to depend on the individual. I have squatted in squat shoes. I think the most I've ever squatted with my added powers on was 220 kilos. So that's about, I'm sorry, not squatted, but deadlifted, which is about 485. And I did some work sets with that, and I'm going to say they are harder. I would compare doing deadlifts in squat shoes to doing a deficit deadlift. but it's a little different from a normal deficit deadlift because of the foot angle. I feel like it became a very hamstring dominant deficit deadlift, a very hamstring dominant deadlift when I tried them. Would that be okay if you wanted to do that? It's really going to depend on your individual mobility. If you have really short arms, I might not recommend that you do this. But if you're just trying to stack on muscle and strength, and maybe you're concerned that hamstrings, or you're, again, doing more deficit deadlifts might be advantageous to you, or you feel like you want to focus a little more on your hamstrings, I think it's reasonable to do that. You need to understand you're not going to lift as much weight. You're probably going to lose 5 to 10% of the weight that you can do on your work sets in legitimate squat shoes, Olympic lifting shoes, on deadlifting. Now, is that a gap that could probably close over time? Probably. But when I tried it for about a week, just messing around with it, that's about what I noticed. About a 5%, maybe a little more decrease in strength of what I seem to be able to lift with the same speed, same power, and everything as far as weight on the bar. And I definitely noticed a more pronounced emphasis on my hamstrings on the deadlift. Is it dangerous? Probably not, unless you have really short arms, in which case you're pulling yourself into a bad position by having basically being elevated. Just like I wouldn't recommend deficit deadlifts, even though I'm a big fan of them, I wouldn't recommend them to someone with particularly short arms. Now, if you have normal length arms or particularly long arms, yeah, this could be an advantageous exercise to do, and I would count it as essentially a deficit deadlift, and just realize that when you go back to more conventional lifting shoes or more minimalist heels, you're probably going to lift more weight. But as far as it building muscle and strength, just because you're using less weight isn't going to be a problem, because you're moving the weight further and you have a deeper stretch. So yeah, a little less weight on the bar will still give you great stimulation. So again, it's going to depend on arm length and maybe where you want to put your focus. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.